I'm Ivy. My Chinese name's like Zhou Ziyu, so I'm Ivy Zhou, and I'm from China. I'm currently a rising junior in VST. I'm studying photography. Yeah.
Wonderful. Can you explain your style?
Um, I well, to this point, I didn't develop like a complete style of myself, but I'll say I do have preferences that I enjoy photographing. I, if you can call it like street photographs, but it's more like I love to do photo walks, so that walk on the streets, on the places I'm familiar or unfamiliar with, and try to capture all the odds and usual things that happens in daily life scenarios.
What I see is that you have a pattern of kind of capturing like unique perspectives of like ordinary things, but in a unique perspective. And I feel like that kind of represents how you sees the world and how you want to express yourself. How do you think that your perspective is kind of connected to your kind of style and what you do as an artist?
Yeah, I say like my perspective is like the representation of my view of the world, and as photography is probably one of the art forms that's most related to like my view of the world, like my personal perspective, because like what you see is what you shot from your camera. So yeah, that's like my personal perspectives highly related to my work and therefore my style. But technical wise for myself, I'll say I don't do like really dramatic scenes or studio scenes. That I mostly work with daylights, but I do like a more dramatic way of like daylighting, like really sunny days of really high contrast shadows and sunlights. Lights and sunlights are a really important part of some of my photographs.
So what are you trying to achieve in terms of like the conceptual part of your art?
For like recent years, I try to because when I first get into photography, like fine art photography, I do like highly conceptual works as most of the art students. But in these few years, I'm more like into a less conceptual, like it's more about, I'm trying to like take more experiments and to see what's really the past and subjects I'm interested in. So I'm more into like more daily scenes of like things around me, my family, mostly my life and the places I live. So nothing really big or any dramatic scenes, that's also like my personal preference, but more of like the minor things you can find in your living that's like I feel like it's worth to present to the audiences.
So what do you think makes this change happen? So how did this?
I think because like firstly it's like so many persons have touched on all the subjects, like the large subjects in the world, but my life to me is personal and unique. So I think that might be like a better starter point for me as an artist. And also I'm not really into like really broad and really splendid topics. I just feel like that's like too big to talk about, because like I feel like we are more, although like those big topics are always existing there, but the life that you live every day or every second is more about the general thing and more about the things around you other than like the really big topics.
So do you think a good piece of art can only be good or should be good to like for like a broader audience to talk about all these broader genres?
Could you explain your question a little bit?
Do you think like for a good art to be good, should it sacrifice their like what the artist personally thinks and focus more on like expressing these general topics too?
Of course not for me, because art, well, for me and most of the artists, I think art are like personal, firstly personal, because it's like the personal expression of that artist, and everything should go from there. So, well, some artists try to like, they only express part of themselves in their work, and that's like totally fine and great. But if an artwork is a total violation of their personal thoughts, I don't think that could be like a really touching piece. There might be, but I just don't feel that way.
So, as you were talking about like personal expression, so in your view, what is art? Is it just merely a personal expression, or is it the impression that it gives the audience? So, what do you think?
I just somehow sort of like when I'm doing TA for you guys, there's one teacher in the art critique class said that art, like whether something is art or like a random thing that looks like art, how to define that is like art has a purpose. So like basically everything you did to create a sort of like beauty or action, like all those things you did for a specific purpose can be named as art.
So how do you differentiate from like art and good art?
Yeah. What is the standard, and who's there to make the standards?
Well, it really depends on like what you want, because if you are giving the art for like a general audience or for the market, there is like a certain standards. Well, like there's two ways of thinking of this. If you are like trying to make it to a wider audience, there are like standards that are, or it's hard to say, but it's more like it's like whether you have a more, and whether the audience feel the way you are feeling. Like it really depends on what time it is, and like whether how the society are feeling right now, and like whether people sees the emphasis in your work that they are feeling the same way. But on the other hand, there are certain like technical parts that can define whether it's like a good art or like a practice work. But that's more like, that standard is more given by like our school, given by like all those institutions of like whether you meet the bare minimum techniques, like your images are sharp, they have like most of the information they need, or drawings like. But as we know, all of those standards can to a certain point be like can be break. But it really depends on like whether there are like these are the general rules, but from time to time there are works that did not meet any single rules but can still be a good work. So
yeah. So can I understand it this way? So I heard a metaphor before. So for Icarus, he has to get out of like what other people are doing, but not too far, not too close to the sun where you get burned and you drown. So as an artist, you are trying to find a line that you are putting your work into. It's like not too conceptual, not being able to perceive by the general public, and also not that low that where everyone can understand and there won't be make any sense of making it. Is that?
If you say that way, like, yeah, that's an interesting metaphor. Like, yeah, I think generally you can think that way. I work, well, because right now I'm still a student, so I don't think that much about I do think about the audiences, but I don't think that much about like whether my work meets the rules, the curriculum yet. But I do agree that whether I'm thinking it or not, in the standards of art we are like learning daily, there is the certain rules of like making a work in a certain like genre that does not lend too normal or too crazy. But
how much exactly do you think technique should balance with concepts?
I'll say for it, that standards is constantly moving. Right now, people are more into like using art to tell a story or a concept, or have like your unique way of saying or narrative. Mostly because like art has been there for so long that all the technical parts, all the like astonishing, purely beautiful artworks have been made already. Like
So do you think art has
decades
been
ago.
degraded during this process?
I was like, it's now the standard changed because like we all saw how like a perfect technical work can be. So people are trying to do different things right now because like they're trying to find different ways to interpret art as the other interpretations on the technique side has already been set by artists like hundreds of years ago. So right now, I think for contemporary art, it's more on concepts or it's more on concepts or narrations. Like it's more on personal expression than on techniques.
Okay, so photography definitely have a huge impact on how people make art, and because of it's realistic and it's things like that. So do you feel like some of the responsibilities of kind of creating a scene or something that's realistic has been transferred into photography, so now people don't pursue like realism in art that much, but they went on all different directions. But for photography, do photography still remains in that realistic, like capturing scenes or things, or they take another route of going to a conceptual and what they do in fine art?
Yeah, photography itself is like a more tricky and unique kind of art form because it's so close to the reality and sometimes can be hard to verify whether it can be called art. But in fine art photography, I've seen artists, photographers do things, these both ways you were talking about. Because like, especially the major I'm in right now, there are still like a lot of people who's focusing on a more realistic part of photography and to more portraying like not honestly what they've seen from the lens, but more on the image itself and more using photography to capture the scene other than using it as like a paintbrush to do something more abstract. And I think that's making more sense with photography as like is more capturing about the ongoing world. But although art has been there so many years and has a certain standard, but the daily world, the society is changing every day. So the daily scene, the reality you capture varies every day. So there's still something of a more realistic past that photography can capture. But at the same time, as you say, a lot of like photographers who consider them more as like a contemporary artist do works that use camera more as an installation tool, like to do more abstract works, and that's also a way to do this.
Do you think, like, to be a real artist, a real photography artist, do you think that that can be learned from any art institutions, or do you think the art institutions are there for like commercial photography?
I feel like art institutions are more, it's like, because when you are starting with something, like especially art, it can be tricky that, because for lots of people, they want to appreciate art or they have this feeling for making art, but it's hard to know where to start because art is such a, like, until now, there's not like a really clear definition of what is art. So art institutions, art schools are more there for like building a curriculum to get people into the art world, to like it's like a practical way to teach you how to be an artist, and but it's not necessarily commercial because well, I don't think what I learn right now in the major can make me any money, but yeah, but it's like a more practical way for you to learn to be an artist because not everyone have this initial feeling of like how to make art and be an artist from the first place. But it's not the only way to be an artist because there are a lot of people who doesn't go to art school but do have a feeling to, let's say, photography, especially for photography because it's such an easy to access medium of art right now. But like a lot of people, they just have this instinct to like pick up a pencil to draw or like know how to photograph, then they don't necessarily need to go to art school to be an artist. But art school is just a way to tell people like, oh, you have this feeling to art and let me tell you how to like get deeper into art so you can be an artist or to appreciate art more. So it's just like a curriculum to help people to do this.
But since it's so like conceptual right now, do you really think learning all the techniques in art school is actually necessary?
It really depends. I think basic techniques are still necessary because you need to learn how to walk, like how to run, to like achieve all those beautiful dances and things. So techniques are like learning to walk. Like you need to learn this tool, you need to learn this medium first to achieve all those things you can do. But I feel like art school right now, especially in North America and European places, I guess, but like for North America, techniques are never the most important things to learn. Like there are already like less technique perspectives in these art institutions. Like they taught you the basic and then it's really like your personal choices.
Yeah, like for like Cy Twombly or Basquiat or Duchamp, they don't really need any technique. It's just all the concepts.
But that's what you like saw from their paintings. But even people like Picasso, they have a perfect techniques of how to draw. Like they know exactly how to draw a really precise drawing, and then they choose to do the abstract things. So it's like, and they do the things that seems with less techniques because like that's the path and way the art is transforming. Because
so you think there is like a certain path that the artist can follow, like starting with realism and then going to abstract. Then what about like Basquiat? He just started wholly abstract and he's so successful.
Yeah, that's true. Because that's like, yeah, that's how, well, mostly artists learn the techniques first. But since I feel like mostly you learn techniques first, but as I said about the artists, there are always exceptions, and because like Keys and a lot of artists are more towards the contemporary era, that techniques are more and more less important right now because like all the good techniques has already been there, but I still feel if you want to study art or you want to know about art, is important to know about the techniques just because this is where all the arts are from.
My next question is, how exactly do you balance between your artistic aspirations and monetary gains?
And as I said before, as I'm still a student, I didn't think that much about the financial part yet. It's more, I'm trying my best to use my years here to really take in all I can to learn, to like use the time here to create works and to see how far I can go as an artist. And by the end of my college here, I'll and depends on how much I have achieved as an artist and how great work I can make. That's the point when I can decide like I'm gonna take making photograph as my interest, as like an important part of my life, but not the way I make money or as like one of my part-time job. So it really depends, but for right now I didn't really consider like the financial part or or making any work for the money.
So do you think like the spiritual achievements of creating photography can support you to live a life, like to feed you enough with this energy so that you don't need that much money to live a happy life?
Well, that's absolutely not true. That I don't really think my art will be able to like support me financially. Just for right now, because like everything's already been paid, I just take all this time, and that's also a good part about art school. It's really creating this space for you to only think about art. But after this, I think I'll most likely, as most of the artists I know are doing another art-related full-time job, and then use photography or use art as their like the thing they like to do and as their part-time work, but they do another work for their living.
So that's why I think art school isn't like that beneficial for students who aspire to be artists, because it's just creating this environment where students think that they can express their art in freedom, but after the 4 years they're going to realize that the actual world differs from like their imaginations.
Yeah, but at least you have this 4 years for yourself.
My last question is, what is your plan for your future artistic career?
And as I said in the last question, I'll say I'm gonna try like do all the experiments I can while I'm studying here to hopefully like find my own art language with photography. But I think I'll most likely to find like an art related work that could like still allow me to express my artistic feelings and thoughts, but at the same time make enough for my living and for me to, and give me some like free time to still doing my work.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, thank